I want to preface this video and say that I know I'm not in the majority of people with this opinion. I know that I can expect a lot of dislikes, and I'm not trying to change anyone's mind, but I don't like Poppy Playtime Chapter 3. And that isn't me saying it's bad or anything. It's actually really good, but there's some issues that personally took me out of it and resulted in me giving it a negative review. Before we talk about the bad, let's discuss the good. The game had a lot of blood, and I appreciate that. Straying from other games in the scene that are too scared to use blood is a good move. Some games even removed all plans of blood after getting traction. For instance, Hello Neighbor was originally supposed to be much darker than it ended up being. The neighbor was supposed to yell swear words at you, and his basement you'd be able to find the mangled corpses of kidnapped children stuffed into bags. I'm not saying that it was a bad move to remove that. Hello Neighbor did more than just remove that. They made the neighbor into a good guy and made Hello Neighbor a cartoony game with goofy physics. In the end, that ended up working out for them, as the game became very popular, but also alongside that, the game became known as the worst mascot horror game, well, maybe except for Ban Ban. Would we have gone an entire different direction if they didn't remove that aspect of it? A more mature path in mascot horror? Maybe. I think that Poppy Playtime is starting to ask that question themselves, and make a game for a more mature audience. And that is a good thing. The school section was amazing. Miss Delight is such an amazing character design, and the level of detail is awesome. I especially love how Miss Delight's weapon is a crumpled up piece of paper with pencils stabbed into it to make a mace. She was originally supposed to work as a red light green light character, where she would move whenever the lights flickered, but that was deemed too difficult. I'm glad that wasn't added too, because one of my main issues with the game is its difficulty spikes. The puzzles in this chapter are, in my opinion, very uninspired and extremely easy. A lot of the bits of the game outside of the puzzles are like this too. They can be very easy, and sometimes it feels like you can tell the game has been in development since almost 2 years ago. The puzzles feel like puzzles from 2 years ago, and that's because of the long development time. I appreciate a game that takes its time in development to make sure the final product will be good, but this is just an unfortunate side effect of that sometimes. Let's get back to the good stuff. Poppy Playtime has always gone above and beyond when it comes to character design. I know people used to hate on the characters, saying Huggy Wuggy isn't scary and Mommy Longlegs isn't either. And while that is true to some degree, the designs are unforgettable. Huggy Wuggy can be scary, and that has been shown time and time again. Mommy Longlegs isn't really salvageable though.
Mommy knows other ways.
What? No!
CatNap and the Smiling Critters have amazing character design. CatNap is genuinely terrifying, sometimes, and the Smiling Critters can be too. DogDay looks amazing, and his final speech was my highlight of the entire chapter. The voice actor did a phenomenal job and genuinely made me feel something. The last of the Smiling Critters was an amazing line in particular, and his chase, while mirroring Huggy Wuggy's vent chase, wasn't that bad. Oh, okay, there's a whole... Okay, I went the wrong way. But I'm sure you've heard all of this before, and the stuff I like isn't unique takes or anything. So let's go ahead and get into the stuff I don't like. Loading screens. Wow! There are a lot of loading screens in this chapter. Like, in every single place you go, you'll get one. Traveling between locations in this chapter is very common and tedious. You go down, get a key, go to a new location multiple times, sometimes having to bring a wire down there too, and it doesn't spruce things up at all. It's a chore. And every single time you enter a new location, you get a damn loading screen. It's actually worse than Grand Theft Auto Online. And now, I'll bring up this point briefly because it was most likely just a me issue. But I was also lagging a lot through my playthrough, and I know it wasn't my computer's fault because the game used barely any of my resources, and the lag was the exact same no matter what my graphics settings were. Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 is nothing like the previous chapters, and a lot of people like it for that. It was supposed to clean up the image that Poppy Playtime made before of being a kid's game. I don't like that. I think Poppy Playtime's old aesthetic was good, and it didn't need to be replaced, especially not by another aesthetic that is literally just Silent Hill meets Toy Factory. People love the long hallways part of Chapter 3, and I didn't hate it, but I for sure think it's super overrated. PT did it way better, and when one of the major parts of your game is a worse version of a playable test demo, that is a red flag. CatNap is in this part of the game a lot, and that is appreciated. He does appear genuinely scary in these scenes. He feels powerful, and that is a good thing. It'd be an even better thing if this happened for any other part of the game as well. CatNap's appearances through this chapter are minimal, and that's crazy because this chapter is around 3.5 hours long. The worst part of this chapter is that it feels like it's 2 hours shorter than it actually is, because of how repetitive some of it is. Nothing is very fleshed out, or even if it is, it doesn't feel like it. I know you expect it out of me, but no, I'm not gonna say that the Huggy Wuggy Nightmare TV design is bad. It's actually sick and badass and cool, so fuck off if you don't like it. I will, however, say that all of the hands in this chapter are so underutilized. You're limited to only being able to use these hands whenever there's the time to use them. The purple hand would be so cool if it was just placed around in random locations instead of only in places you'd actually use them for a puzzle in. The flare gun would be actually cool if there was dark areas to use them in, instead of only using them against the smiling critters in the carnival area or whatever the hell it is. And even in the dark places the flare gun is able to be used in, there's nothing that would be scary about it. And the flare gun isn't even bright enough to light up anything. The gas mask is pretty much useless, just being a PNG to overlay on your screen and blind you while you run through smoke. So much of this game is listening to people talking, and that severely cuts down on replayability, or some speedrunning categories. Chapter 2 suffered from this as well though. Whenever I had to leave an area to go to the center of the map again, especially when it was dark, I expected a roaming enemy to be there, and maybe you have to stealthily sneak past them, or run for your life. But that never happens. A big fear of mine while playing was that there would be a roaming enemy, because that would make it genuinely much more terrifying. But Chapter 3 stuck to the same roots as the other chapters in that sense, and everything is scripted. There is nothing to be afraid of in the main areas, and you can just walk around like you own the place. And the final boss of the game is such a difficulty spike from the rest of the game, it's insane. It's also poorly designed. You're supposed to shoot flares at CatNap as he runs towards the room to see if he's real or not, since you're in a nightmare. I didn't do this once because I had no idea that any of the catnaps were fake. You also have to deal with reading the computer screen and doing the small tutorial at the beginning every single time you fucking die. It gets very annoying since you're destined to die from the difficulty spike. I never even used the flare gun in the boss fight because it is literally useless. It is easier to just close the door that CatNap comes in from, even if it's a hallucination. Also, whenever you die in any of the scenes with a nightmare CatNap, you get a normal CatNap jump scare. And if you want to say that's because the real catnap gets you and the nightmare is a hallucination, then why does Nightmare Huggy Wuggy jump scare you? There's even an unfinished jump scare found in the files after the game released for Nightmare Catnap, and it actually looks promising. Also in the files, it was found you were actually supposed to be able to go to the toy store, and that was originally where you'd find the prototype. I don't know why this was cut out of the game, because a toy store sounds like an actual cool location to go into, rather than the White House with no sense of direction and lackluster catnap scenes. Also, this game is over 50 gigabytes. That is literally the size of Grand Theft Auto 5 story mode. That is an insane file size for a chapter of a mascot horror game. The concept art for the nighttime and playcare not being utilized in the full game has to be a crime. It looks so cool, and even though it's a minor detail, I guarantee I'd think much more of the Playcare Center if it was included. And now I'm at a point in this script where I can barely remember anything else to write, because Chapter 3 felt super forgettable to me, and that's something that the other chapters didn't do. No matter what, the other chapters were very memorable and brought something new to the table. Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 stole aspects from other games, made those aspects worse, called it inspiration, and ended up in D tier. Here's to hoping for a better Chapter 4. Also, I'm still working on the Granny video, I just decided to make this to get something out there. Thanks for watching, I've been Ultbee. Peace.